And which systems or which person in the world today would you say, or what can we do as society to become the top-down as Gaudi does?
Well, I think the clue to this was in your remark that we've only had top-down intelligent design for maybe 100,000 years. So it's a very recent set of competences, and we haven't mastered it yet. I love to quote Francis Crick's joke about what he called Orgel's second rule, which is evolution is cleverer than you are. Now, that was not, remember who said that, Francis Crick. This is not intelligent design talking. Nobody could, but what Crick was saying is that blind, unintelligent, purposeless process has, because of the brute force of it, the power, the competence to generate things that are much more clever than what we can tend to come up with all of our foresight and intention. So yes, we're intelligent designers, but we should not kid ourselves about the powers that we have to use our foresight wisely. And look around, look at global warming, look at all the problems we have, and we realize these are products of our intelligent design to a very large degree. Gaudi, as you say, was a horrifically wasteful, prodigiously overexpensive architect and builder. That's why the church is still not finished, and probably never will be. That, however, I don't think is the main problem. Because nature is colossally wasteful too. Just think of all those billions of apples that never become apple trees. Just think of all those trillions of sperm that never make a baby. Prodigious waste is very much nature's way. We, for very obvious and good reasons, have to think in different economic terms about efficiency and so forth. And that means that we have to make compromises. And we also live with a very short time scale in mind compared with evolution. So there's lots of problems. I don't think we can point yet to any sort of super geniuses of intelligent design who should be given the authority and the power to change the world. We're better off doing it jointly. Swarm intelligence, swarm computing, cloud computing, as they say, is better than single processor.
Okay, oh, please. Yeah. Okay, on the website inviting to this lecture, there's a small quote, and I assume it's yours, and it says, "We human beings are the only living things that can represent, transmit, and criticize reasons for doing things and making things.
Yep.
This creates a perspective for us that we can then use to interpret all the rest of life on the planet cautiously." And I think it's a great quote, but I would love for you to elaborate a bit on the word cautiously.
Yes, well, the last question was already got me started on that, so I'm going to be quite brief. I've encountered, to me, rather surprising pockets of resistance to my talking about free-floating rationales of evolution and talking about the reasons why parts are organized the way they are. There are some Puritans out there in biology land who are very uncomfortable with this, and they were taught recently that such adaptationist thinking was dangerous and should not be trusted, and they should grit their teeth and not use teleological language ever or talk about design. Well, I think they were taught wrong. I think it's fine to use teleological language, but you do have to be careful because there are lots of pitfalls in which you can fall. I recently observed, I was with some biologists actually in Chile, and we were talking about this, and I said, have you noticed that whenever the critics talk scornfully about just so stories about, do you know about, Rudyard Kipling wrote this wonderful book of just so stories about how the leopard got its spots, and how the hippopotamus got its, or the rhinoceros got its skin, and the elephant got his trunk. And then Gould and Lewontin, in a famous article, talked about adaptationist just so stories as these sort of fanciful myths. And a lot of people jumped on this, and they've used the word just so story ever since as a sort of term of abuse, which they use whenever they see adaptationists in evolutionary biology getting imaginative about what the functions of things are. But here's my point. Have you noticed, and I now will be very happy to get any counterexamples of this, have you noticed how all the criticisms that cite just so stories, they're always about human evolution, about aspects of sociobiology or aspects of evolutionary psychology. They never say just so story about something that a molecular biologist or a cell biologist says. And if you look in your textbooks, you will find not hundreds, but thousands of functional claims blithely made by biologists. They're not challenged. Nobody would dream of challenging them. They're just too darn obviously true. But nobody knows the detailed history of evolution of those features. So they're just so stories by definition. And they're fine. So one of the things I have to do now is to get people to stop using just so story as a handy-dandy, all-purpose refutation machine. It's nothing of the kind.
There's one down on the floor there, I believe, coming down from the third floor, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate your introduction about the top-down pattern. And my question is, how do you respond to the American philosopher Tubemogul's theory, the theory about shift of paradigm? How do you respond to this generally? Thank you very much.
Tom Kuhn's book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, was a revolutionary book. It was itself a sort of paradigm-shifting book. It got a lot of people talking about the difference between normal science and sort of revolutionary paradigm-shifting science. And I think it's a wonderful book. And I think it may hold the world record for being a wonderful book that is misused. People have gone, well, no, the Origin of Species holds that record, hands down. That's the trouble with really bold and wonderful books, is that a lot of people can, with misplaced enthusiasm, can misread them and misuse them. And I think a lot of the response to Kuhn's work is